Michael Allen is the managing director of Beacon Global Strategies and former senior director for Counterproliferation on the National Security Council. He joins us now. Michael, the president stopped short of completely ending the deal. What do you make of his strategy?
Well, it's high risk. It's basically saying I'm not going to reimpose sanctions, although I'd like to. And I'm going to go back to the international community, seek support to pressure Iran additionally to make more concessions. So it's a high-risk strategy, but the president, I think, has made clear over time that he thought the deal that President Obama struck had too many flaws, and he's intent to try and go out and pressure to try and fix it.
So we see Secretary of State Tillerson, we've seen Defense Secretary Mattis, even General Dunford has come out saying, stay in the deal. It's in our country's national interests. Do you believe that they were the reason that he didn't completely do away with the deal entirely?
I do. I think those individuals you mentioned and our European allies are the ones that put Trump into the position of saying, don't withdraw, but we're not going to certify anymore that they are in compliance. You know what's interesting about this deal, and something that the White House is actually using as a selling point, is that it shows that the president can, as we say, do nuance, can be nuanced in the sense that he listened to his allies, but he tried to accommodate them. But he didn't withdraw completely, and so he's in a weird position right now whereby he is being criticized by both the right, who wanted him to get out completely and definitively, and the left, which thinks that he's being reckless with an agreement that is in our national interest.
So the president is asking Congress to establish these trigger points. Do you think that congressional action at this point can really deter Iran's nuclear ambitions?
Well, I do believe that in the past, Congress is the one that gave presidents, especially President Obama, more power and authority to levy serious sanctions against Iran. But look, I've got low confidence in Congress's ability to amend this particular law, and this was the ability through which Congress could weigh in 2 years ago, and the way they might be able to reimpose sanctions today. We just don't see a lot of activity out of Congress. This might be a political football with some people that want to completely strike down the deal and others who want to support the Obama policy. So I wouldn't look for much to happen in the Congress.
Well, the president did say that he could end the deal altogether at any time. What if that happens? What happens then?
Well, the first thing that would happen would be we'd have a tremendous rift with our allies. That's something that we want to avoid, not to the point where it's defeating of our own national interest, but we are always stronger, especially on economic matters, when we move forward with the Asians and our friends in Europe. So it would cause a massive fissure. In fact, this is already going to cause a little bit of friction with the Europeans. And the last thing it would do is that it would give Iran the ability to say, hey, listen, the United States is the one that's truly unreasonable. Forget about us shouting death to America. Forget about our sort of malign terrorist activities in the region. It's the crazy Americans who withdrew from this agreement. And so it would be damaging to us, I think, diplomatically as we try and pressure Iran even more.
And Iran is now accusing the U.S. of violating what they call the spirit of the deal. If that's the case, what's to stop them from moving full speed ahead with their own nuclear program at any point?
I think then a public opinion would shift back in favor of the United States. I don't think Iran can overplay its hand here. They're probably going to get a little bit of a boost as far as the Europeans go, because now the people will be emphasizing that it's the United States and Europe that are in a dispute and they're ununified. But if Iran overplays its hand and does what they've done in the past, which is basically set up covert enrichment sites or perhaps on a military installation base, where President Trump, I think, rightly points out that we don't have anytime, anywhere inspections. If the Iranians pulled any of those kind of moves, I think that this would either give Israel a cause to bomb them or give the United States reason to unify the world again to go after them via sanctions or maybe military action.
And we know our close allies, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, also in the deal. So are Russia and China. So would they be willing to renegotiate this aspect?
I don't think the Russians and the Chinese are going to be willing to negotiate. I think the Trump administration has sort of fought the allies to even here in the last few weeks as they've explained this sort of complicated messaging point that, oh, hey, listen, we're only decertifying the agreement. That does not mean we're reimposing sanctions as we had before the agreement. I think this takes a lot of explaining to do. It especially takes explaining to do over in Europe. But the emphasis is now on Rex Tillerson and the State Department to get over to Europe to better explain what the strategy is and to seek their support to pressure Iran to make concessions on terrorism. After all, it is a state sponsor of terrorism, and also to make concessions on its ballistic missile capability. And so that's where Trump is taking a risk, trying to get additional concessions on these two areas where Iran is an outlier. And it's now a diplomatic game.
Michael, when the Obama administration negotiated this nuclear deal, what were the pressure points for Iran? What would really get them to sort of come to the table and re-talk things through?
Basically, it was their inability to use the U.S. dollar and to access the international financial system. This had the effect of freezing out their banks from being able to do everyday banking transactions. And the second large thing imposed in part by Congress and later by President Obama were sanctions on their oil industry. Their oil is the lifeblood of their economy, and if we were to go over again and try and go after those two pressure points, you know, the optimistic view of what the president has said today is that, hey, that kind of deal could yield additional pressure on the Iranians and maybe get them to compromise. But that's the idea: oil and access to the U.S. financial system.
Mike Allen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.